Welcome back to 3 months of modal logics with Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing our series, a sequel to the 100 Days of Logic, kind of a Logic 201 series. And because we're in the month of October, we're going to keep talking about Deontic logic. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Deontic hexagon. This is kind of an advancement of the Deontic square, or the Deontic square of opposition, which was very closely related to kind of our Aristotelian square of opposition. So now, instead of just having obligatory, impermissible, permissible, and omissible, we're going to be adding 2 more nodes: optional that P and optional that not P. We're going to have our original relationships still in place. So it's still contradictory between obligatory and omissible, and between permissible and impermissible. It's also going to still be a contrary between obligatory and impermissible. At least one of them must be false. They can't both be true. That's what contrary means. But there's going to be some other contraries that play in here. Between obligatory and optional is going to be a contrary. At least one of them must be false, but they could both be false in the case of something being impermissible. Similarly, we're going to have a contrary between optional and impermissible, because they can't both be true. At least one of them must be false, but they can both be false, once again, in the case of something being obligatory now. We also have a contrary between obligatory and optional that P, in the same way we had a contrary between obligatory and optional that not P, and similarly between impermissible that P and optional that not P. We're also going to have our normal subalternation relationships, remembering that truth flows downward, falsehood flows upward in both of those cases. But we're going to add some more subalternation relationships. So if something is optional, that means it must be omissible. If something's not omissible, it cannot be optional. If something is optional that not P, it must be the case that that thing is permissible that P. And if something is not permissible that P, it's not the case that it's optional that not P. Similarly, subalternation relationships are going to flow downwards from optional that P to permissible that P, and optional that not P to omissible that P. We're also going to maintain our subcontrary relationship between permissible and omissible. At least one of them must be true. They can't both be false, but they could both be true in the case that something is optional. And we're going to add one more relationship, which is equivalence. You'll note that optional that P and optional that not P have all the same relationships going into them. These two are, in fact, equivalent. All right? That is the Deontic hexagon of opposition. Up next, we're going to talk about the difference between Deontic and alethic modal logics. We're going to compare some of kind of the definitions and see where we can find some interesting similarities and maybe 1 or 2 differences. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay tuned for the next 3 months for our 100 days, our 3 months of modal logics. Stay skeptical, everybody.